Lesson 3.1, Pairs of Lines and Angles. The essential question, can you identify parallel and perpendicular lines? Can you identify pairs of angles formed by transversals? Parallel lines. Parallel lines are two lines that do not intersect. Most importantly, though, the two lines have to be coplanar. So in this particular picture, we can say lines L and M are parallel. They don't intersect and they're on the same plane. And this is the parallel symbol. When two lines do not meet, but they're not in the same plane, we call them skew lines. Lines M and K are what we call skew lines. Notice M is in plane T, but K is not on plane T. They will not meet, but they are not in the same plane, so we call them skew. There is no symbol for skew. We also can have parallel planes, and we can also have intersecting lines. Let's take a look at this figure. Lines parallel to CD and containing the point A. So here's CD right here, and we want to have a line that's parallel to CD but contains A. Here's A. Now we have to make sure it's in the same plane, so we're going to want this line. So we're going to write line AB, and you can switch the letters if you wish. Lines skew to line CD and containing point A. All right, in this case, we don't want a line that's in the same plane, so we're going to choose this line right here. It contains A, but it's not in this top plane, so we call that line AH. Now, we could also have line AG as well, because that won't be in the same plane as well. Lines that are perpendicular to line CD. Perpendicular, let's get another color. We want to make sure it's making a right angle, so it could make a right angle here. So that would be line AD. And that's all we know right now. We have this perpendicular. Let's take a look at planes that are parallel to EFG. EFG is this plane right here, and we want a plane that is parallel to it, and so that'll be the top plane. So we can say plane, and you can pick three of the letters. I'll say A, B, and C. Okay, parallel postulate says that when you have a line and a point, so given a line and a point, then there exists a line going through point P that'll be parallel to the given line. The perpendicular postulate says this. It says if you have a line and a point, then there's going to be a line going through this point, exactly one, that will be perpendicular to the given line. Okay, so let's name a pair of parallel lines. Now I'm looking for the parallel symbol, which is right here and here. So I can say line DM is parallel to line EF. Now I'd like to name a pair of perpendicular lines. Perpendicular, I'm looking for the perpendicular symbol right here. So I'm going to say line BA, BM, I need to say BM, is perpendicular, and then it's going to be this line, which I can say MA. Now we have to answer the question, is FE parallel to AC? And since there are no parallel lines, I can't say that they are, and it looks like eventually they might intersect. So the answer is no, they will intersect. If you take those lines long enough, they look like they're going to intersect. Okay, let's go ahead and talk about some vocabulary. When you have three lines, if we have two lines, let me go ahead and do this. If you have two lines and you have a third line, you create 8 angles. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And we're going to start naming angles by pairs. All right, so corresponding is our first vocabulary word, And again, here's the transversal. Notice it's labeled T. And corresponding angles are like angles 2 and 6. Now, let's notice their characteristic. One, that 6 is inside the two lines, and 2 is outside these two lines. Also notice they're on the same side of the transversal, and notice they do not share a vertex. All right, so for this problem, I could write another pair of corresponding angles. I could call this 1, and I could call this 5. So those are corresponding angles. Again, one between them, one outside. They're on the same side of the transversal. They do not share a point. Okay, let me give you some other corresponding ones. We could say 4 and 8 are corresponding. Again, one's inside, one's outside. They're in the same side of the transversal, and they don't share a vertex. Okay, our next vocabulary word is alternate interior angles. Let me go ahead and draw these two lines, and let me draw the transversal. Now, angles that are inside these two lines are called interior angles. And the word alternate tells us to make sure they're on opposite sides of the transversal and that they're not adjacent to each other. So they lie between the two lines on opposite sides of the transversal, and make sure they're not adjacent angles. So we could have angles 3 right here and 6. They would also be alternate interior angles. Next vocabulary word is alternate exterior angles. Let me go ahead and draw the two lines again and the transversal. These angles right out here are exterior angles, and we want alternate exterior angles. We want to make sure they're on opposite sides of the transversal and that they are not adjacent. So we could have angle 2 here, and we could have angle 7 right here. These would be also called alternate exterior angles. The next type are called consecutive interior angles. Let's go back to drawing again. And let me draw the transversal. And these angles are in the interior. And what's special about them is they're consecutive interior. In other words, they're on the same side of that transversal. So angles 3 and 5 are consecutive interior. 4 and 6 over here, if I call 4 and 6, they would also be called consecutive interior. Okay, let's practice. We want to find some corresponding angles. Let's make sure that we understand where the transversal is. This is the transversal. Corresponding angles is 1 interior and 1 exterior, and they have to be on the same side of the transversal of T. So that would be angle 1 and angle 5. You could also say angle 2 and angle 6. You could also say angle 3 and angle 7, and you could say angle 4 and angle 8. All of them are non-adjacent angles. Okay, alternate exterior angles. Remember, they have to be alternate interior angles. They have to be interior angles, so they have to be between the two lines, and they must be on opposite sides of the transversal. And make sure they're not adjacent. So that would be angle 2 and angle 7, and also angle 4 and angle 5. Alternate exterior, they would be exterior angles, and they would be outside, so they would be outside of the two lines, and they would be on opposite sides of the transversal, and they are non-adjacent. So angle 1 and angle 8, and angle 3 and angle 6. Consecutive interior, remember we're talking about interior angles. These are the interior angles. And consecutive interior would mean that they are in the same side of the transversal, same side of the transversal. So angle 2 and angle 5, angle 4 and angle 7. Okay, classify the number pair. I see 1 exterior and 1 interior. They're in the same side of the transversal T, so I'm going to call them corresponding angles. I see that these are exterior angles, both of them. They're on opposite sides of the transversal, so I'm going to call them alternate exterior angles. Okay, here I see their interior angles, and I notice they're on opposite sides of the transversal, so I'm going to call them alternate interior angles. All right, let's wind up things. We're going to identify a pair of parallel lines. This is a prism, and we know things are perpendicular to each other, things are parallel. We want parallel lines, so we must make sure that we're on the same plane. So I'm going to choose this one, and if I choose that one, I've got to choose this. So this will be line UV and line XY. Parallel lines are always coplanar. A pair of perpendicular lines, I know these are standing straight up, so I know that this is going to make a right angle over here. So my answer is going to be UV again and line VY. I want a pair of skew lines. Skew lines must not be coplanar. So I'm going to choose VY, which is a red line. And then I'm going to choose this line back here that I know it won't intersect, which is UW. Let me go ahead and put that in green for you right here. Oops, green right here. So this green line and this red line will not meet. And this is the end of the screencast.